Morning, everyone, and welcome to this press conference on a bill that we're sponsoring. My office, I'm Senator Robert Jackson. I represent the 31st Senatorial District, 13 miles of Manhattan, approximately 330,000 constituents in the district. And we're sponsoring a bill that's going to help working parents, but especially working moms, in order to give some relief while they are taking care of their children during this COVID-19 pandemic that we're in. And the Assembly sponsor, my sister is here, Assemblymember Solages, who is from Long Island, and she is a working mom herself and have to deal with the issue of working as an Assembly member, along with working as a mom and taking care of our home, which is extremely important overall. And I guess that as a male, I don't know what it is to be a mom. I know what it is to be a dad, but mothers basically run the household. Let me be quite frank, in my opinion. But I do know, I've heard from moms and I've heard from my daughter who has two children in Virginia. They're young, they're 7 and 10, and they're on remote learning. And she's juggling that along with juggling her job as an MD. And let me just tell you, her husband is there, but he's doing his thing in another room because he's working remotely, everything. So we're basically trying to juggle and to make everything work. But I consider myself a parent activist because from a historical perspective, I've been involved as a parent at our kids' school, on the school board, in the city council, and on every education committee in the state senate. And so when it comes to parents, I clearly have a vision of what mothers are addressing and dealing with. So I'd say this to you, this legislation eases the pressure on working families. The stress of ensuring childcare during an uncertain time regarding school reopening, and you heard in New York City that now parents have to make a final decision coming up one way or the other, and that's not the way it was before. And the Chancellor of the City of New York, Chancellor Carranza, said there are two things that has to happen. We have to have patience and we have to have flexibility. Well, that's what we're asking with this legislation. We need to have flexibility up in Albany and in our localities in order to make sure that working moms and working dads, but especially working mothers, have the flexibility to take care of their children's needs, but also being able to keep their job and all of the benefits and salaries that they're currently earning if in fact they are still working. And that's what this is about. Let's be sensible, let's be reasonable and understanding that this is about working together for the family to survive this pandemic. So I'm very thankful for having Assemblymember Solages sponsoring the bill in her chamber, meaning the New York State Assembly. And I'm so proud of my Chief of Staff, Johanna Garcia, for coming up with this solution in order to address this. But you know, just like she thought about it, other parents are thinking also, how are they going to juggle everything and wanting to really take care of their home and also keeping their job. So with that, what I'd like to do is to turn it over to my colleague in the New York State Assembly, Assemblymember Solages.
Thank you, Senator Jackson, and well said. I just appreciate this opportunity. And to simply say, parents shouldn't have to choose between their careers and their children's academic success. Let's be real. So before I continue, I just want to thank Senator Jackson, his Chief of Staff, Ms. Garcia, and the whole team over there, including my team, for working together to ensure that working parents can have that balance here in New York State. Thank you to Vote Mama, to Better Balance, and all the organizations. If I didn't mention you, please excuse me. All the organizations that help us craft this legislation, improve this legislation, because it really takes a coalition to ensure that New Yorkers are protected and that are able to ensure that our kids, our littlest New Yorkers, are provided with the best success in our world. You know, this hits home for me. I know many parents. I'm a mother of two. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. My son is going to kindergarten right now, and he's full remote, so he's home. And you know, I know well, I'm trying to balance my career, election, as well as ensure that, you know, he's sitting down and listening, which is always a challenge. All those moms know out there. So as an assembly member, I'm afforded an opportunity, but I can only imagine essential workers or parents who have non-traditional jobs, what they're going through at this time. It's not easy. It's really not easy. And so we have to ensure that we pass this legislation because we know that there's many different dynamics of academics. We know that there's disabled students who need much more support. We know that there's younger kids, early learners, who require additional enhancements to their education, whether it's play or other initiatives. And then we have, you know, elementary school children and older children who, you know, need assistance, but them too, they are also aiding and assisting their family members. We know that New York is a high cost state for childcare. On average, for infant and toddler, it costs $18,000. And now with the pandemic, which is really destabilizing our childcare system here in New York State and all across the country, it's very difficult to find slots. We know that childcare facilities have to have reduced slots. We know that, you know, demand for you know, educators, for nannies, for facilitators in the home are at its highest. So parents either can't afford additional help or it's not accessible to them. And so right now, working parents are juggling a lot. And that's why I appreciate Senator Jackson for coming forth with this legislation and us, you know, being united together to ensure that it passes, because it gives working parents an opportunity to survive in this new norm that we have right here. And we see all over, especially on Long Island, we had 2 school districts actually shut down, Long Beach, and one of the school, Valley Stream Central in my assembly district, actually shut down the school for 2 weeks. Even in my son's school, which is doing full remote in addition to, I'm sorry, doing full in-person in addition to remote, I get at least a phone call every week saying that we had to quarantine a class because a parent or the teacher or the educator test positive for COVID-19. So right now it's a very unstable time. So providing paid family leave with you know, 2/3 wage for family members so that they don't have to choose between a paycheck and their children is going to provide a leg up for New Yorkers. The road to recovery lies in childcare and lies with in-person education, but we have to be smart about what we're doing. And we have to ensure that we're protecting families with job protection. And so I thank Senator Jackson for what he does. This is very exciting that we've put this legislation forth, and I encourage all my colleagues to sign on, and I encourage Governor Cuomo to move on it when we go in the next session, because we enhance paid family leave for families who lost a loved one, for mothers and fathers who just, you know, had a baby and is able to bond and be with the baby. But now we're in unprecedented times, and it's now time to enhance it, to enhance paid family leave so that families have an option if they need to take 12 weeks to ensure that the next generation is provided with success in their academics. It's a smart thing to do, and this is the way to the road to the recovery.
Assembly member, let me thank you for your leadership. And for those that do not know, Assemblymember Solages is our incoming chair of the New York State Black, Puerto Rican, Latino, Asian caucus, all of the members. So Assembly member, you are clearly a partner in this based on your leadership in the New York State Assembly, but also, as you said, as a parent of 2 children, one going into the kindergarten, one, you are clearly juggling.
Yeah, and I thank you, all the fathers out there. I have my husband too that helps me, but you know, the fathers are important as well. And you know, you've been a great one, Senator. I'll give you one if you want to borrow my child to, you know, reminisce.
So let me turn to Johanna Garcia, my chief of staff. She is the bill's originator. And so Johanna Garcia, welcome and thank you for your leadership. You did that in the city council and now as my chief of staff in the New York State Senate. And what I say to people is that people who come up with bills are average individuals in our community that give us ideas. Our staff gives us ideas as to what bills are appropriate to put forward. And I turn to Johanna Garcia, our chief of staff, who put forward this bill. Johanna Garcia.
Thank you, Senator. It's a tired refrain, and it's also a scary proposition of this pandemic. When we sometimes hear you can't have a kid, or you can't have a, you either have to have a kid or you either have to have a job, but you can't have both. And that's technically not true, as many working parents like me can attest to. But despite all the talk from elected officials and education leaders about how important it is to have parents involved in their children's success, our city and state and federal government has yet to reach consensus. They are right now refusing to finance or facilitate it like the public good that it is. And it is a public good to support working parents, especially working parents. And I'm a single mom of color, and the brunt of this pandemic, COVID-19, has been borne mostly by single moms of color. This solution that we're talking about today would make it easier for working parents when it is really critical to the education of our children. The success of remote learning really relies on parents being involved. As well, this is important for the advancement of gender equity in the workforce. There's been so much gained in terms of gender equity, and we're just going to roll it back if we don't support parents the way that we should. It's an opportunity for women to achieve upward economic mobility and not go backwards. And as a single working mother of 3 teenagers who also supports my intergenerational family, I understand firsthand the challenges working mothers face. These challenges were here before the pandemic and have been made harder as we prepared for remote learning. Like most moms, I agonize over how to keep my children safe and help them learn while still paying the bills and keeping moving forward. And this fall, parents have been forced to take these challenges into consideration when deciding whether to send their kids into schools for hybrid learning or keep them fully remote. And now, as you mentioned, Senator, that the Chancellor of New York City Department of Education, he just announced on Monday, October 26th, that there will be only one opt-in period for remote learners to transition to the hybrid model, instead of the 4 that we were promised over the summer. This means that the stakes are even higher for working parents to have more options to support their children. And I'm grateful to you, Senator Jackson, as your chief of staff, for allowing me the autonomy to bring about and develop this solution. I'm grateful to Vote Mama. I'm grateful to A Better Balance. And I am so grateful for the leadership of Assemblymember Solages. Thank you so much for your leadership. I know that with this team, we're gonna win on behalf of all working parents in New York State. And while we're not here, we're not gonna pretend that this solves all the problems or replaces the need for significant federal dollars to be earmarked for economic and childcare support for excluded workers. It would be significant in keeping women in the workplace. Paid family leave already provides for us, as Assemblywoman said, to take time for our family members with serious health conditions to bond with our newly born or adopted children. Why can't we extend this to help us bridge the gaps in care caused by shuttering our schools? We need to provide a balance for working parents by giving them the option to take paid family leave to support remote learning. This will ease so many of the other pressure points in our systems right now. And I just want to end by saying that I'm grateful again to both the senator and the assembly member for introducing this legislation. And I hope that other elected representatives at the state level will see the merits of this approach and pass this bill in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Johanna, and thank you for your leadership on behalf of all of working parents, not only in our districts and in District Long Island, but the entire state of New York. So next, we're going to turn to Sandy Gosine Goshen, who at Shore Avenue Parents PTA president, a working mother. So Sandy, tell us who you are and why are you so in favor of this bill?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Senator. And it's, just the thought of this bill is definitely a breath of fresh air. I'll tell you, being a working mom, it's just juggling the work and the roles of a mother is just tough enough, right? And having a child that's, you're not sure, like Assemblymember Solages said, it's like you know that, you have trust and faith in your child, but you know that they're going to get distracted. There are going to be times where they're not, doing, and being an involved mom for the length of time that my 8-year-old has been in school, it's just really to know that I can have some time to make sure that everything is being done as it should, or that I have, she has my support, because having that, in-person time, it's just so different. It's nothing compared to, being in like a remote setting and being on a screen, having to talk to a screen. It's just not the same. So it's I'm actually one of the moms that you hear about, to be honest. It's, having to, being on the verge of wanting to leave the workforce because I can't have that balance. And that's the honest to God truth. It's having that, just the other day, having to take her in for assessments and not knowing, taking time off for that, right? And not knowing if my job is in jeopardy, if I'm, am I overstepping my boundaries? Am I, having to take additional time off to do things? Picture day, we skipped picture day because I didn't want to take that time off, additional time off, to have her pictures done. So, I mean, and that bothered me because thank God I'm a photographer, so I was able to take her pictures, but still it's not the same as, having that. She asked me, she's like, why didn't I go to picture day? And what am I going to say to her? Senator, you're muted. Sorry.
You're the president of the PTA at your school. And what are other parents saying to you, if anything, about this?
Oh, they're definitely, the same issues. Some of the parents are just like, most of the parents are fully remote, where it's most of the kids, where it's, that's the same concern. It's just a lot of the parents actually left the workforce because they were not willing to have, and that puts an additional pressure on the household itself, right? It's just, imagine having like 2 working parents and then having now 1 working parent because you're not comfortable with leaving your child alone. Special needs kids, what about them, right? Having that environment and knowing that, okay, I can't even imagine how hard it has to be for like parents who have like special needs children and they're juggling that, remote learning with their child. So they have definitely been addressing those issues and concerns. The parents have, it's hard.
Well, thank you for your leadership. Obviously, you're juggling. I think that we're all juggling, but in my opinion, moms are juggling more so. Obviously, there are some dads that are single parent households, and they're juggling just as much. But obviously, it's imperative that we understand that the center of most families are the mothers. And so that's what the primary purpose of this legislation, but it's for dads also that are juggling too. So let me turn to Molly Weston Williamson, the Director of Paid Leave and Future of Work at a Better Balance. So Molly, welcome to this press conference, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Jackson, and thank you, Assemblymember Solages, for really highlighting this really critical issue facing working parents. It's really critical to us at A Better Balance. It goes to the core of our values. It's also really critical to me as the working mother of a toddler who thankfully does have childcare again. In the face of this pandemic, working parents across the state of New York are struggling as they try to care for children who are learning remotely or whose daycares are closed, all while working. And this burden has fallen disproportionately on women. And as a result, every day, women, especially moms, are being pushed out of the workforce. Last month alone, nationwide, 4 times as many women as men left the workforce altogether in record-breaking numbers. And in one new survey, women were twice as likely as men to say they left work due to school or childcare closures. And as always, this struggle is falling disproportionately on women of color, on low-income women, and on immigrant women. This exodus has devastating, lasting effects for working families and for gender equality. While the federal government took an important first step in providing emergency COVID-19 childcare leave. The law leaves out millions of workers, fails to meet the needs of many more, and is set to expire at the end of this year. A Better Balance is proud to work with New York State in working to ensure that all working parents have the tools they need to get through this emergency and care for their families without risking their economic security. Thank you so much.
Molly, you say A Better Balance. For those people that do not know the organization A Better Balance, can you just tell us who that is, please?
Sure. A Better Balance is a national legal advocacy organization based right here in New York that works to ensure the ability of working people to care for themselves and their families without risking their economic security. And that means things like advocating for paid family leave in New York State, advocating for paid sick time in New York City and in New York State, and working on issues like this around the country to really lift up New York's leadership and show the way to ensure that all working parents, all working families have the tools and supports they need to really get the care that they need and to care for those they love in a way that still lets them keep protecting their family's economic security.
And you're a working mom yourself, is that correct?
I am indeed. I have an 18-month-old.
Oh, well, and you're juggling. I'm sure you are.
I always am. One of my favorite stories is that the working mom version of the nightmare where today's the final and you haven't studied all the semester is today's the day you have a big thing and you don't have childcare. And I think about that every day.
Well, let me thank you for your leadership. I'd say to you that years ago when I was in college, and I'm talking about almost 50 years ago, when our daughter was born and she was living on campus with my wife. And when it came to finals or midterms, I would have to take my daughter and bring her to New York and juggle between work and put her on my bike and drive her to my mother's house. And let me tell you, we were juggling, but you know one thing, when you work together, we can do it. And that's what's important. So thank you for your leadership. And now let me turn to Aisha Bruno, a working mother in CEC 6, that's Community Education Council 6, which is in Northern Manhattan. She is a member from PS 153, which is the Adam Clayton Powell Junior School in West Harlem. So Aisha Bruno, welcome to this press conference, and let's hear what you have to say, your 2 cents to make this a full press conference.
Yes, I'm happy to hear that such a bill is being thought of. I think it would help a lot of working parents, such as myself. I find myself working harder than I did since I'm working from home and doing remote schooling for my 10-year-old son. I may not be a single mom, but the bulk of the responsibility still falls on me. My husband doesn't have the luxury of working from home. He's been working throughout the pandemic, so I'm doing all of the support for my son as far as his educational needs. I'm doing the bulk of the cooking and cleaning, and I still work full time at home. So in a time like this where lots of working people can face layoffs and furloughs, it would be a nice option to be able to take such a leave and receive compensation opposed to straight up getting fired or getting laid off at a time like this. The money would help. I know there are some leaves available right now for family leave, but you may not get any money for that. So I think such a bill like this is very important and a lot of people would benefit from it.
Well, let me thank you for your leadership. Have you talked to other parents in your school and what are they saying, if anyone, or parents in the neighborhood, because everyone is remote these days, like we are?
Well, I participated in some interesting chats. I think many parents feel that we should get like some extra funding, at a time like this, as with working parents, especially with the lack of childcare. It's always been the law for, as far as I can remember, for kids to attend school. So now that they're not in school and they're mostly home now, a lot of parents could use the money and they're like stuck in a bind. Hey, do I send my child to school? And I'm scared I'm going to get sick, or do I keep them home and not have any money and die of a slow death of being hungry because I don't have any money to put food on our table? So it's a lot.
Good. Well, thank you for your leadership in West Harlem, the Adam Clayton Powell School. In fact, that school replaced the school that I went to right around the corner, PS 186.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's a fun fact. Thank you.
So at this point in time, we're going to go to questions and answers from any of the press that's available regarding this very, very important subject matter. So Chris, let me ask you and Dario, do we have any questions from any of the press that may be available?
Sure. So if you have a question, you can just go ahead and go on video and unmute yourself. And if we get a crush of people, we'll do stack, but I think we'll be okay. All
right, I have a question, please. Carolyn Gussoff from WCBS TV. Just wondering, could it be taken, I'm not familiar with the particulars of Family Leave Act right now, but can it be taken over a period of time, or do you have to take the whole 12 weeks all at once, or could you take like a few hours a week? And then also, who's paying for this? The employer only?
Well, that's obviously, you remember I mentioned about what the chancellor had said as far as patience and flexibility. So clearly, it's not you have to take it all at one shot. If in fact you are on family, your child is on remote learning 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and you need to juggle that period of time in order to be with your child versus whatever your family situation is, then that's what it would be. Not you have to take it all in one shot. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to Johanna Garcia, the primary sponsor of this in order to answer that question. Johanna, and then Assemblymember Solages also.
Okay, I just want to, I'm not the primary sponsor, that's you, Senator, and Assemblymember Solages. But thank you. But yes, so again, the key here is flexibility, because this is what working parents need the most when they're supporting remote learning, which is why the way that the bill is written is that you can take the units of hours and stretch it out over the time that remote learning is occurring. As long as we are in a state of a pandemic, the working parent can use that, can trigger that, so that they're not detrimentally impacted at work or economically. In terms of who's paying for it, because we are a crisis, is crisis on top of crisis, and part of that is a fiscal crisis. And we're definitely looking at different models, including looking at tax credit incentives for employers, or looking for it to mirror other mechanisms in the federal and state level that I think actually Molly is better equipped to explain. So right now, we want this bill to pass because the need is now. So we're not anchoring ourselves in this is the way it has to be funded just now, because if you look at it, the election, and I'm not talking about politics, but the reality is that there's an election that's going to happen next week. And that's really going to determine our path forward in making this happen and what the funding mechanism is going to be.
Assemblymember Solages, and then Molly, if you have any comments.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Ms. Garcia said. The more enhancements that we can do if we get federal support, the better the bill can be. So at this point in time, for the next 7 days, we're not married to any sort of funding scheme when it comes to this. But we do want to ensure that if we get more federal funds, that we can have a better program.
Mm-hmm. And Molly Weston Williamson, the Director of Paid Leave and Future of Work at A Better Balance. Molly.
Thank you. I'm happy to talk more about what the model that the federal government has used looks like, if that's helpful, but I prefer to defer to my colleagues in the legislature in terms of what's on the table in New York State. I think they're better positioned to speak to that.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, any other questions in the chat?
Go ahead, Greg.
I do have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Medina. Yeah, go ahead.
From Politico. Hi, how are y'all doing?
Hey.
I was wondering if you could speak to sort of, how many people would be able to, apply for this, and like eligibility requirements, like how all that would work?
Well, obviously, if you are a working parent and you're juggling, and especially
2 minutes 44 seconds.
especially moms. That's what this bill is about. And so what we need to do is to get everyone on board with this, because everyone is juggling, whether or not you have a child or not. Everyone is juggling between remote and Zoom, and then running to press conferences and things like that. So this will allow moms and dads that are working, being able to take family medical leave, or family leave rather, and also to make sure that they are not negatively impacted by their salary and or leave credits that they may have. That's the most important thing. And that's why we're asking all employers and legislators to be flexible and understanding what mothers are going through, primarily mothers, but also dads that are head of household and there's no one else besides dad and they're juggling. This is for them in order for all of us to survive during this pandemic. That's what it's about.
And some of the qualifications, just to echo that, is it has to be a state of emergency. We have to be within the pandemic. And they need to have the school would have to be closed. So, or, you know, the parents have to opt into full remote. So, you know, for example, what I mentioned beforehand, if you're a parent and all of a sudden your class is quarantined, your child is quarantined, or there's an issue where your school shuts down, you're entitled to this. And I just want to thank Sandy. She's my constituent from Valley Stream. I appreciate her coming on the Zoom and talking about this, because we've really had many conversations about this, and I thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other questions in the chat, Chris?
Hi, could you provide details on what child age is covered by this? Would this go up through middle school or even high school, depending on the circumstance?
Well, I mean, I have my opinions from all the way from pre-K through high school, because you have to remember, you have some children that are in high school and they have special needs, okay? Whereas a child that does not have special needs, they can juggle basically and be responsible. But children that are, for example, with special needs may need more additional help. And so it depends on what the situation is, And we're not trying to target only a certain age group, like elementary school or intermediate school. That's why we're asking for flexibility, as long as you meet the requirements of the fact that you have to decide whether or not you have to take care of your child in their remote situation or go to work. Once that threshold is reached, in my opinion, you're entitled to decide on for your child.
And you know,
go ahead. Assemblymember, go ahead, please.
Ms. Garcia, you can go. Go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay. So currently the bill is designed to definitely accommodate parents who have children that are school age, all up to the age of 12. After 12, if you have a child that has an IEP or has a special need, then you can also qualify for this kind of support.
And that definitely, as you know, it's that critical age where the children need the most assistance, and you know that's what we're targeting right now. You know, so that we can provide that, because you know I've already heard horror stories that you know people had young children 6 years old, you know, that they had to leave the 11-year-old with the 6-year-old to do distance learning because the mom had to run to work. And so you know we're trying to target that age range where the child needs the most support in their education. And, you know, if we have wide support, I don't know, we didn't negotiate this yet, but if we have wide support, I mean, we can expand it. But for now, we're just targeting that age.
Yeah, definitely. I think what's really key here is that we're forcing parents to make impossible decisions, to have to figure out how to keep your job, how to keep your children safe, and how to keep them engaged in school while everything just keeps changing over and over in your world. It's pretty criminal, and we have to do, it's our obligation as a government to do all that we can to make it easier for parents.
And obviously, Chris, any other questions? This bill number, the bill numbers, if you don't know, is Senate Bill 8919A, sponsored by myself, and Assembly Bill number 10977-A, sponsored by Assemblymember Solages. Those are the two bill numbers, but flexibility is really what we want in order to meet the needs of working moms and dads that are juggling between work and childcare as far as remote learning of their children. So other questions in the chat, Chris?
I don't see any, although I think, Blue, if you'd like to ask that question that you chatted to me, we'd be happy to field it now. It's a really important one.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Blue Carreker. I'm a facilitator for two coalitions that are really very concerned and supportive of this effort. So that's the New York statewide paid leave coalition that helped to pass the original paid leave bill, worked very closely with ABB, and the Empire State Campaign for Childcare. We hear every day about the concerns that have been raised here and really see this as a growing crisis. Concerns we have are, how do we fund this without imposing a bigger cost to the paid leave system, which is about to double its fees? New York has an exclusive system, and that is that it's paid for exclusively through payroll deductions from workers. And those deductions are about to double as we roll out the complete paid leave system. So the federal paid leave system, emergency paid leave system, has employers paying for this, their emergency times, with a tax credit on the other end. And so we would hope we could find a way to not raise the burden on workers as we are addressing other worker problems. And the other thing I'd like to say is we do have an incredibly struggling childcare system, but we have many, many childcare providers who want to step up, who have capacity to step up, all right? But they need additional support from the state in doing so. And they need to be part of the tables where we're discussing these solutions. Most of the education reopening tables did not include childcare. And yet childcare facilities can be very helpful to parents. Taking paid leave, even though it preserves income in a relation to your employer, does take you out of the work system, and there can be further implications and negative implications for women whose employers no longer think that they, are trustworthy. We went through a century of people not hiring women because of our childbearing responsibilities. So let's work with the childcare system. Let's work with the government. Let's get this done. I'm so glad that you've taken this initiative and brought it out to the legislature and the press. But let's figure out how to use all the resources we can to make it work successfully for our low income, particularly working people.
Well, Blue, let me thank you for the leadership and the two organizations that you indicated earlier. And I think that is all of us coming together in order to come up with the solution. And quite frankly, I don't think that any one person or group or organization has all of the answers. So we're trying to be flexible, but trying to get it done. That's the main thing, because the beneficiary is going to be our children and their educational development. And we don't want any parent to make a decision where they're juggling and they're leaving one child home with another child that's barely old enough to be responsible, and have ACS being called and all kind of craziness like that. Chris, we had looked for Liuba Shirley for the president and founder of Vote Mama. Is she in the house?
She's just arrived.
I'm here, Senator. How are you?
Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad you made it. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to speak in on this particular matter. I don't know if you've heard all of the speakers, Assemblymember Solages and Johanna Garcia and Sandy Gosine and Molly Weston Williamson, the Director of Paid Leave and Future of Work at A Better Balance, and We had two moms, one on Long Island, the president of PTA in Asia, Bruno, a working mom in West Harlem. And so we had several reporters that asked questions. We want to give the floor to you regarding this very important issue. And thank you for your leadership in Vote Mama.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with all of you. My daughter was literally just sitting on my lap a few minutes ago. I am a working parent, and I know this. I know what it's like right now, and it's been incredibly difficult. My daughter stayed home for the first 6 weeks of the school year. I only just got her back in school, and my son is going to do a hybrid preschool model, but I've been doing homeschooling and juggling this, so I understand this on a very personal level, and I'm grateful for your leadership, Senator Jackson, and Assemblymember Solages, who's one of our wonderful Vote Mama Advisory Committee members, and I am so grateful for all of your leadership and mentorship of our incredible candidates. And Johanna, I remember when you came up with this idea. Johanna is actually one of our Vote Mama City Council endorsed candidates, and this is literally why we need more moms in office, because you have people who have this lived experience, and it affects your legislation and what you actually fight for. If you understand these issues because you're living them daily, you understand what your constituents are going through, and you will fight for issues and legislation that will actually make their lives better. So it's game-changing legislation. We have so many women who are leaving the workforce right now, and not because they're choosing to, but because they're forced to. How do you stay home and do remote schooling? And we're basically expecting moms to homeschool their children right now. So many of us are staying home and doing that, and at the same time working, and it's not feasible. So this legislation is absolutely a game changer. I am so grateful for your leadership on this. Johanna, it was an incredible idea. Senator Jackson, Assemblywoman Solages, thank you. And you're making a real difference for a lot of working parents, both moms and dads. And it's just, it's amazing to see what really happens when you get people into office who get these issues, because it's their lived experience. So I just wanted to thank you and fully support your legislation. I'm here to help however I can.
Well, thank you for your leadership. And we just have to get the word out to everyone, if they're not aware of it, to bring them all in. And, to add, we're going to ask Assembly members and senators to sign on to this bill. And I would think that it's a no-brainer, and they should. But like anything else, let's work together. So before we close, let's turn to anyone for last comments. Assemblymember Solages, and then anyone else, Johanna and everyone else. Assemblymember.
I just appreciate the opportunity to carry this piece of important legislation. We see that COVID-19 is still here. Hospitalizations are up. Unfortunately, there's more deaths that are happening. In Europe, you see that the second wave is coming. And so we assume that the second wave will be here. And there's going to be time where families are going to have to quarantine. Children are going to have to quarantine. And we have to have a solution. We've had already a 6-month period where employers were understanding, but we don't know if they are willing to accommodate working families, working parents. So we have to be smart. We can't look at saying, oh, well, we'll fix it, this will work out. We have to provide solutions. We have to figure out a mechanism so that parents are protected, their jobs are protected, while providing the academic support for the children. And especially for children of special needs who need that extra support, that enhancement. So this piece of legislation is critical in the fight and in the road to recovery. And I thank all the individuals who are on this Zoom call to champion this legislation. And I feel that this is something that we will get done because even just talking about it for the last couple of days, it resonates with so many parents. In my school district alone, 50% of the parents are full remote. So I can only imagine all across Long Island. So the conversation needs to be had. I know there's issues, but at the end of the day, we need to come up with a solution because too many women are leaving the workforce. And that to me is detrimental.
Thank you. Thank you. Johanna, last comments, please.
I want to echo what Assemblywoman Solages said. This pandemic, our biggest enemy here is to be reactionary. We have to be responsive. We know what the issues are. We know what our working parents are going through. We can't wait for someone to say, oh, okay, now we have no choice. Right now, parents don't have a choice, but we're making impossible decisions. So this is a solution that we have to take from the back burner and put it to the front burner because it is a priority. And we know that there is a fiscal crisis, but we also know that when there's a will and when we know that there is a need, we match those together. We have a coalition, a strong coalition already here. And there isn't any bigger doer or multitasker than a mom. And with many moms all in, we can get this done. So thank you everyone for your support and for your commitment to this.
Molly, last words.
We just want to, I think, thank the team again for really lifting up this critical issue. And I think we're really looking forward to continuing to work to figure out how we can really meet the needs of working parents in this crisis in a way that's really going to work for everybody.
PTA President Sandy Gosine, Long Island.
I just want to, just extend my gratitude and thank Assemblymember Solages. Johanna, thank you. This is amazing. Like I said, it's a breath of fresh air. And Senator, thank you so much. My last question though is how can we help? What's our responsibility? Spread the word. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Will do.
Thank you. Aisha Bruno, working mom in West Harlem.
Just thank you for having this discussion. I think it's very important for us to be heard and just get the word out there that this is a thing, that this could happen. And I hope that the senators look favorably on this bill.
Thank you. Thank you. So we need to get the word out to all moms and dads to communicate with their state legislatures, both in the Assembly and the Senate, in order to support this legislation. And if in fact you need help finding out who your legislators are, just reach out to our office, Assemblymember Solages, or my office at senatorjackson.com, and we will help you find your legislators so you can communicate with them directly. So Chris and Dario behind the scenes, let me thank you for putting this together on behalf of all of us moving forward. And I look forward to working with everyone in order to talk about this issue, if necessary, to amend these bills, and then get our leaders, Andrew Stewart-Cousins, the majority leader of the New York State Senate, and Carl Heastie, the Speaker of the New York State Assembly, on board so we can move this forward and have the governor sign it into law. We're going to find a way to get it done. Thank you all for coming. Go ahead.
I also quickly want to give a shout out to Matthew Levy, our policy director, who's also been helping. With
Matthew, thank you, Matthew. I think he's listening on the line too. Is that correct, Joanna? Thank you both. And also, Assemblymember Solages, your point person is Joshua, is that correct?
Joshua Joseph, which is josephj@nyassembly.gov.
Well, thank you all, and thank you for coming to this press conference. Bye, everyone.